Welcome to Scale Model Workshop. In this second part of my review of Eduard's new 48th scale Hawker Tempest MkV. The first part of this review covered the assembly of the fuselage. The next step in the instructions have you start assembling the wheel wells. This is based on the assumption that the wing halves mate properly. Unfortunately, right out of the box, this isn't the case. So at this point, you'll need to put a hold on the wheel wells and take a detour. The hallmark of the Tempest is the huge, beautiful wing, the features of which have proved to be enigmatic to plastic kit makers, and it certainly proved to be the foil of Eduard's first attempt at the Tempest. The combination of a huge plan form and thin cross-section make it difficult to reproduce with the traditional two-part design of most injection kits, and it's especially evident towards the trailing edge, where the wing does a long knife-like taper. To reproduce this with the typical split wing would require an excessive taper that would be difficult to mold and include any surface detail. So what Eduard's chosen to do is split the halves through the flaps and across the wingtip. This allows for plenty of meat at the joint and actually does a good job of recreating the proper airfoil. However, the concept sort of got lost in the translation from the computer to the model. The two wing halves are aligned with the edges of the raised portions and three very small locating pins. Test fitting the wing halves together reveals a number of issues. The locating hole at the starboard wingtip is molded too shallow to accommodate the pin, so you can't get the leading edge together at this point. The mating surfaces of the leading edge are not always parallel. This is especially evident inboard of the gun mount on the starboard wing. So again, you can't get the pieces together properly. Finally, the split through the flap doesn't always result in mating surfaces of equal height, leaving a step between the two pieces in some places. So at this point, you really need to spend some quality time test fitting and making adjustments to get everything to mate up properly before you add in any additional complications that might come after cementing in the wheel well structure. It's easier to deal with one issue at a time. Here's how I went about it. The wing sections have a fair amount of flex, and I thought it'd be best to take a systematic approach and start in one area and work out. Since the bottom wing half seats nicely against the indents, I thought it'd be easier to just remove the locating pins, which also takes care of the first issue. Next, I wanted to adjust the back edge of the bottom wing half so that it'd be at the same height as the rest of the flap. I started by running a felt tip marker over the area where I want to remove material. This will help visualize where and how much material that I'm taking away and keep it even along the edge of the flap. I repeated the process of removal and test fitting until I got both surfaces even. Once that's done, I moved to the leading edge. This is handled in the same manner with the exception that I didn't want to remove any material from the very front portion where it would overly alter the thickness of the leading edge. So again, using the felt marker, I was able to remove the excess material, leaving the very front edge undisturbed. Once I got satisfactory reduction in the gap and the wing halves fitting together nicely all around, I moved on to the wheel well assembly. The wheel well is framed in by 6 pieces, and for the most part they just drop in. But I'd suggest removing all the parts first and getting them ready to go before cementing anything. That way you can make any adjustments quickly before the glue sets. I glued up the main pieces minus the gingerbread. and I made sure that everything met at equal heights all the way around. I found that a piece or two needed a very slight adjustment at their base. Once the cement set, I went over the edges with a flat block to remove any burrs. Test fitting revealed that the wing halves now seemed to mate up satisfactorily, and when checked against the fuselage wing fillet, I thought the result was very good. I then glued up the wing and added the wheel well details. Out of the box, the ailerons didn't fit, and I found it was much easier to remove the mounting tabs from the ailerons, which made cleanup of the mating surfaces easier. I also had to remove a slight bit of material from each side to get the ailerons in place. The piece containing the cannon tubes was one of those maddening little telltale indications that it wasn't designed by a modeler. How it's sprued makes cleanup very difficult, and the fit's marginal. In the end, with the application of some basic modeling 101, the wing turned out pretty well. But in my opinion, the fit out of the box of the wing halves as well as the ailerons and gun tubes was not acceptable, especially for a kit of this price. However, these issues wouldn't keep me from buying this kit, and I'll talk about this a little more in my conclusion when I put it in the perspective of the entire model.